that many different kinds of phenomena reported regularly that something's happening here.
We know it's not an airplane for a fact because this doesn't have all the characteristics of an airplane or anything like that, or an earthly object. So at the end of the day, it comes to be a classic UFO, unidentified flying object.
These stories are some of the strangest experiences ever described in the UK. We can't tell if they're true, but they are all recounted by ordinary people. Now they are your witnesses. These three locals are UFO enthusiasts. In recent years, their long sky watches have paid off with some astounding sightings. But to this day, they remain mystified by the failure of both local authorities and the Ministry of Defence to identify the object.
We investigate UFOs over the southern England and try and find out the answer to some of these sightings we get reported to us. In May 2000, we were doing a sky watch in a local area at Netley in Southampton. We'd set up camp in one of our usual spots, and along with us we'd take our cameras, binoculars, night sights, which are night intensifier cameras, which we can see in total blackness. We set everything up ready for a sky watch. Now this particular night we'd set up, everything was loaded, set up, camcorders were turned on ready, and suddenly over Southampton Water, to our surprise, we saw this light.
We suddenly saw this orange kind of globe appear on the other side of Southampton Water.
All of us have lived in this area for a long time. We've done sky watches before on many, many occasions, and we've never seen anything flying that low coming up Southampton Water.
We looked at it for a while and couldn't quite make out what it was, so we got the camcorder going. We thought we'd film this.
It's slow, isn't it? It's slow.
At first it's nothing, doesn't appear to be anything interesting, it's just a single light just flying along, could be anything. What made it interesting was, as we watched, from the opposite end of Southampton Water we have this airplane. Comes flying down Southampton Water towards this object, and we just thought, well, you know, it's obviously police spot a plane.
It turns around again and falls out.
It's turning around, yeah, it's following it, look.
It's circling.
We're circling it, isn't it? Bloody hell. Yeah.
We didn't quite know from what we could see. We could see the lights of the plane and it coming out. And it approached this orange globe, which was still hovering in the same place, and it went round it twice. And it went away, this plane, and came back again and had another look at it, and you can actually see this on the video.
Strange, isn't it? There's no strobes or nothing.
At one point it actually almost stops dead still, where it then turns right round. I was looking out through binoculars at this point, and I can see what are like a row of about 5 sort of orange golden lights. So we're sort of thinking to each other, well, you know, exactly what is this thing?
The amazing thing is when this object starts to speed up, it stretches, so you've got like a row of 8 lights. It's completely changed from a one round ball of light. And it's astounding. To me it is, and the group, when we saw it, we just lost our breath sort of thing. It's sharp and take a breath and, wow, is it an airplane? Is it a helicopter? And all the way through the sighting we were asking each other questions, and we still come away just in awe, wondering what this object was.
So it was quite stunning really, but we thought, well, we better check up on this, and as the police spotter plane was involved, we can certainly find out. They're bound to tell us what it was. 48 hours later I sat down at my telephone with a list of phone numbers and began to ring around all the local authorities.
Ernie Sears contacted numerous local police authorities and coastguards from the surrounding area, but none of the organisations said they had any aircraft flying in the area that night. The team had video evidence of a plane circling the mystery object, but could find no one that would reveal the plane's identity.
It wasn't a commercial plane, it was very slow. and this police spotter plane is a very slow aircraft, and it will go very slow and very tight to this object.
Definitely the police spotter plane. You can actually see the navigation lights on the plane as it banked round and the shape. And yet, when I phoned the police up afterwards, and this is Police Central Control, who should have known anyway, they completely denied there was anything up.
We know there's something there. We filmed it. We filmed another aircraft flying down and looking at this thing. So somebody knows it was there.
Increasingly bewildered, Ernie Sears contacted the Chief of Hampshire Police, and finally confirmation was given that they were flying in the area that night. Despite this breakthrough, however, the police could offer no reports of anything else in the skies.
The response I got the second time was completely different to the one I got the first time.
We've actually got a letter from Hampshire Police saying at the time of the sighting, the police spotter plane was in the area at the time. I mean, they actually circled around it twice. Now, if there was nothing there, why would they circle around it? The pilots must have seen the same thing that we saw. Whether it was captured on the spotter plane's cameras, etc., we don't know.
There's a good chance that there possibly is. There is some footage of this somewhere.
Or have they just wiped over it? Or has it been sent to the Ministry of Defence, to some laboratory somewhere to be enhanced, to look at properly? We simply don't know. We'd like to know. Again, it's one of these avenues. We keep coming up to these brick walls all the time. We get so far, then it's just a brick wall in front of us.
We must be able to see it, whatever it is.
There is quite clearly on the footage an interaction which to my mind makes it pretty clear that that helicopter knew that there was something in the skies above Southampton that shouldn't have been there.
Ernie continued to climb further up the chain of command to discover exactly what the authorities knew about what was in the skies that night.
Well, I contacted the MOD. This chappie came on. He just said, "You're actually talking about a UFO, aren't you?" And he was laughing in his voice, you know. I said, "Well, yeah, it's a UFO, unidentified flying object." He said, "Well, you know, I couldn't tell you that anyway, could I?" We went through all these bases in the area and out of the area, official, and they all said the same thing. There was nothing up.
The team was left frustrated and confused once again. But their story was about to take a new, astonishing turn. The UFO was back.
Virtually a year to the day, we're filming over Southampton docks area across the water, and suddenly this ball of light appears in the sky. Now, it was a clear night, there was nothing around. And lo and behold, what happens? Again, the police spotter plane appears in the frame, flies across our view and flies back again. Now, eventually the plane just disappears and flies up Southampton water, and this light is still there when it goes, and it's just there. Suddenly it starts to fade, and it just fades out of sight.
It is fading though. Yeah. It's going, it's gone.
Gone, yeah, gone, just vanished.
The second sighting, 1 year on, renewed the team's determination to push for answers. This time, Ernie would go right to the top, demanding the case be investigated by Dr. Louis Mooney, the Under-Secretary of State for Defence.
The interesting thing with Dr. Mooney's two-page letter was he finally said, "We do not have any problems with believing in extraterrestrial civilization, but the object was of no defence significance, so therefore we do not investigate it, we do not have the finances to investigate it. No defence significance. Full stop."
When the MOD come out with the phrase of no defence significance, that strikes me as being pretty strange, because why would the helicopter be there monitoring quite obviously what this light is doing? And if the evidence from video experts, film analysis proves that there is an object there, then you have to say, well, that's an object in our airspace, and two, you know, you've got to say, well, what is that object? And quite clearly, we don't know what that object is, or if we do, somebody's certainly not saying.
When you look at what is there, you've got oil refinery, you've got Marchwood military base there, You've got other things there that, in my way of thinking, would be a defence significance.
Yes, on both occasions it would appear that the police spotter plane had been scrambled to intercept this object and have a look at it. They were curious about it.
That is moving.
It came now. Yeah.
What are they hiding? Why are they afraid of telling us what exactly happened that night?
Going pretty quick now.
In many of these cases where they've been officially reported, is sure enough the MOD man comes out, but that's usually the last time the policeman ever hears anything. So they never get any feedback. What was the conclusion? And it would be interesting to see these files, and I will be applying for these files in due course.
We know it's not an airplane for a fact, because this doesn't have all the characteristics of an airplane or anything like that, or an earthly object. So at the end of the day, it comes to be a classic UFO, unidentified flying object.
Either they really don't care about it. They've looked at the footage and they really just don't care. They're just not interested. Or they do know what it was. They knew before we even contacted them.
This case doesn't mean the end of the Southampton UFO Group. It means we'll get better, we'll become stronger, and we'll carry on with our investigations, our sky watches. We truly believe there is something out there, and maybe one day we'll get to the truth.
You might say this thing is bigger than all of us. They don't know what to do about it, they can't do anything about it, and they hope the enigma will go away and leave them alone.
There remains no rational explanation of the craft's origins in either of the sightings. Despite the group's claim of a police spotter plane videoed circling the mystery object, none of the authorities contacted have admitted any reports of anything else flying in the area on those nights.
It would be nice to think it is life from elsewhere. It's a nice thought, but whether it is or not, we will never know. Even asking questions in the House of Lords, I don't think we will ever know the true answer to what this object was.
All of a sudden, he did go very ashen, very pale, and he described a woman in a terracotta dress coming down the stairs.
There's that many different kinds of phenomena reported regularly. Something's happening here.
Belgrave Hall in Leicester, steeped in mysteries for centuries. A Victorian woman has repeatedly been seen and heard walking its corridors. But recently, the ghostly rumours were propelled into the 21st century by this CCTV image of what appears to be the mysterious resident. Staff contacted paranormal investigators to get to the bottom of the mystery.
Our approach really is to recreate by natural means whatever the anomaly is.
It happened just before Christmas '98, and we did our investigation in March '99.
From early on in their investigations, many witnesses were claiming that this was the ghost of Charlotte Ellis.
The Ellis family, the most interesting of all the families who've lived at Belgrave Hall, he came here in about 1845. There were 5 daughters who remained in the house until they passed away, and the last one did so in 1923. 5 very interesting women. All of them had very strong personalities, particularly Charlotte. John Ellis purposely brought this house to bring some security to the girls, to the women. This house really became their refuge.
I've worked for the museums now for 16 years, and I've heard stories about the hall. One day, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I came into the hall and the 2 museum assistants were stood roughly where I'm stood now, and I could hear footsteps upstairs. I said, we have a visitor in, I really think one of you should be upstairs patrolling, and they both looked at me and said, no, we haven't. And I said, well, I can hear the footsteps, and they said, so can we, which then encouraged me to go upstairs to see the visitor. And there was nobody there. They knew full well that there was nobody in the house. So maybe they were having a little bit of a game with me being the new groom and everything, so, you know, he'll learn that sometimes you hear footsteps here and there is nobody in the house.
The paranormal team realized the CCTV image was just the beginning of a lengthy investigation. Belgrave Hall's ghostly activities were extensive.
Because so many different people have had multiple witnesses to different events here. People have had different experiences, ranging from full colour apparition to cooking smells and other anomalous sounds. And the whole area around Belgrave, there appears to be something going on here.
A few years ago, I believe it was November, a colleague and I were downstairs in the hall. We were talking, there was nobody in. And then we heard footsteps crossing the landing. So he looked at me and said, "I thought we were empty." I said, "Well, that makes two of us." I said, "I thought we were." So he said, "Tell you what we'll do, bolt the door." So we bolted the front and back doors. So nobody, you know, if somebody tried to get out, we'd hear the bolts going. We then both came up, looked under the beds, lifted the chests, and at the end of it we looked, and as this chap said to me, "I've never believed in ghosts or anything," he said, "but I can't explain that." And still to this day, only the once, but I'm convinced we heard footsteps.
I've heard things, I've spoken to people who have seen things, and I've spoken to other people who have heard things. And interestingly, when the media bandwagon started a few years ago, the nice thing about that is that visitors who came to the hall in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s started to come forward and give us their stories. So there's a vast amount of stories about what people have seen and experienced in the hall.
The growing number of witness accounts of unusual phenomena convinced the investigators to conduct a series of scientific vigils.
When we're on a vigil, what we do is arrange to have 45-minute sessions.
The team used a range of high-tech detection equipment, from electromagnetic radiation detectors to highly sensitive audio monitoring equipment. Everything that is seen or heard is meticulously recorded and cross-referenced to eliminate all possible explainable sources. Despite the team's objective attempts to discover rational explanations, some incidents simply couldn't be resolved by scientific means.
Well, on one of the vigils that we did here, a couple of our investigators heard a very loud sigh up on the first floor. It was certainly heard because it was heard by more than one person. That actually remains unsolved. We don't know what that sigh was.
Fresh accounts of actual sightings continued to motivate the investigations.
We were standing around the fireplace trying to keep him warm, really, and Mike was looking up the stairwell. All of a sudden, he did go very ashen, very pale, and he described a woman in a terracotta dress coming down the stairs. He thought that she seemed to stop near a window just at the bottom of the stairwell and then pass away, but when he tried to look properly at her, it disappeared.
Some of the reported phenomena have been, of course, the lady in the terracotta-coloured dress coming down the stairs, looking through the window, then walking towards the scullery here.
The sightings we've had of her, both sightings have put her in the same style of dress, which we can take it back to the 1870s, 1880s, when the Ellises lived in the house. Whether it's one of Ellis's daughters, John Ellis's daughters, I don't know. There is something in the house.
It's very difficult to say who the person is in the terracotta dress, we have to say. Charlotte was muted as somebody who possibly could have been. And also it's recorded within the diarist that she really loved the gardens.
The gardener at Belgrave Hall has himself claimed to have witnessed the apparition, But he is only one of the hall's many visitors with experiences they cannot explain.
When he walked in, he was sitting in the mess room, and he said he was sitting there shaking, his hair was standing on him. Part of the expression, it was like you've seen a ghost. He said, well, I have. I went in the music room, there's something in there, and he said, I'm out. He said, I don't know what it is, but I sensed something in the music room. He said, I'm not running there.
Amid the ever-growing mass of accounts from numerous witnesses, the men from ASAP believe that in at least one of their investigations, they may have made their first breakthrough.
People were suggesting it looked like a moth and looked like a bat, so we brought plastic bats, and thankfully, at the time we were recreating, a moth did fly by, so we eliminated that one.
It turned out in the end to be an oak leaf. And I was the one volunteered to climb the ladder and wave the bat and drop the various leaves down. But the one particular oak leaf that we dropped recreated the
more or less
anomaly,
exactly,
more or less exactly.
People fall into two camps. There's those that believe, and there's others that just don't believe. I don't think there's a middle path with this on this subject, personally speaking.
There's that many different kinds of phenomena reported regularly that it's still intriguing that something's happening here. We've had things on camera, on audio sounds which we can't explain. There's something happening around here which is intriguing, and we'll carry on hopefully to try and investigate the cause.